So today we're going to look at how we can push customer engagement metrics into Google Sheets. So we'll give this a name. We'll call this customer engagement metrics. And we're going to connect to the Google Analytics 4 API via Sync With, so we can go to the Sync With add-on. If you don't have the Sync With add-on, you can get it via the Get Add-ons button, or in the article there'll be a link to the add-on listing. So we can click Get Started. That loads the add-on here. Now we can connect to a lot of APIs. There's over 1,000 APIs available. But if we want to find the API, a specific API search is really good. So we've searched for Google. We can see GA4 here. So we'll select GA4. We'll give the connection a name. You can have multiple connections. Each connection is responsible for pulling a set of data. So we're going to look at how traffic arrives on a website. So we'll call this how traffic arrives. We'll select a login. So I'm going to use my Sync With login. I can choose a property. Same setup you'd see in Google Analytics. So you can check a time range. If we're looking at how traffic is arriving on our websites, I'd say last 30 days to last 90 days is good. We could also go for someone in the middle. We could choose last 60 days. Just do that again. So now we have last 60 days, and we can choose whether to include today. Typically, I wouldn't include today because today isn't finished, so it always looks incomplete or low or wrong. And so typically I wouldn't do that. So now we're going to choose our dimensions. So because we're looking at the traffic that is coming to our site and where it's coming from, we're going to look at sort of two key dimensions that help us tell that. There's the source, which is, and here there's different types of sources. So we want the session source. We want the source that's responsible for that specific session. There's other types of sources in here. So you can look at the first user session, first user campaign, first user source. We don't want the source that first brought the user to the site. We want to look at the source for all the current sessions that happen in those 60 days. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to do session source, and then we're going to do session medium. Medium is sort of like the type. So whether it was email, search, direct, paid, these are all the different types of mediums. So we'll go with that. And then metrics, we're going to look at two engagement metrics. We're going to look at bounce rate. So bounce rate in GA4 is different than bounce rate in GA3. Bounce rate in GA4, I think, is improved versus GA3. It means that the user was on your site at least 10 seconds, or there was a conversion event, or they viewed at least 2 screens or 2 page views. So in GA3, you can't measure bounce. You can't measure engagement if the user just looks at one page. It considers a user who looks at a page a bounce, even if that's completely normal. So bounce rate, excuse me, is the first engagement metric we'll look at. The next one we'll look at is the average session duration. So we've got average session duration here. Okay, great. So we've got those set up. There's a couple other parameters. We can sort. We probably want to sort by, we might just want to have sessions in here. Sessions is just a good metric because it helps us understand importance, right? So if you have a source of traffic that only brought you one session, it's not really important. So being able to sort these by something that shows like most important to least important is good. So we can sort by sessions, and that way it'll show us the most important sources of traffic, and we want descending, so largest first, and then in descending order. We don't want a row limit. We probably won't hit a row limit with just these two. Typically, it will return 10,000 rows as a max. So if you want more than 10,000 rows, you have to change this. Update mode. So this sort of tells us whether we want to just replace the contents of the sheets or append rows. We want to replace the contents of the sheet so that every time this pulls, we're getting the most recent 60 days. Status row is really useful, so we'll keep that there. It lets us actually refresh the data without opening up the add-on. And then scheduling lets us decide how often we want this data refreshed. For a 60-day period, we definitely don't need it refreshed every 5 minutes or every hour. So refreshing daily is perfect. That way every day when we wake up and check our numbers, we can have fresh data there. So that's pretty much it. You can also choose to click a row and do an insert at selected cell. So if you wanted to do that, you can. I'm just going to insert it, and it's going to create a new tab called How Traffic Arrives.